Are you feeling lost in a digital wilderness? Welcome to Lost in Siberia. We are your guide to navigating the world of cyberspace.
So, whether you're a tech enthusiast or you're looking to land your first job in InfoSec, we're here to break things down into bite sized pieces so that you don't have to. Okay, so welcome back to another episode of Lost in Siberia. We're your hosts, Annie May.
And Annika?
And today we've got a special guest on the show. But before we introduce her, Annika, I just want to ask you, have you ever used a recruiter for a job before?
I have spoken to recruiters, but I've never gotten a job through a recruiter. What about you, anyway?
I actually have spoken to Jasmine before in the past, full transparency. My current job was through a recruitment company because I'm contracting now. But prior to that, not really. Like, I have spoken to recruiters in the past, but and I feel like our guest today can probably talk more about this too, but especially with the cybersecurity market. I think that some recruiters obviously don't specialize in that area, and I think sometimes they don't quite understand the specific types of roles that you would be suitable for. Yeah, I guess with that in mind, we welcome Jasmine McCrudden to the podcast from Decipher Bureau. Welcome, Jasmine.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the cybersecurity recruitment market?
Yeah, wow. I guess I've been in specifically cybersecurity recruitment for around about 3 years. Before that, I was in a general tech recruitment role where I was recruiting data engineers and data governance specialists. But before I even stepped into recruitment, I was in sales at Telstra, and I used to sell different types of services and technology to small, medium, large businesses. One of them being cybersecurity audit plans, which was super interesting, learning a lot about how cyber was affecting small businesses and educating sole traders and small businesses on the man-in-the-middle attack. So that was my taste into cyber. But yeah, someone at one stage said, you'd be a great recruiter. And no one actually goes about their life wanting to become a recruiter. People don't usually go to university to become a recruiter. Talk to anyone, the opportunity falls in their lap. They somehow end up in it. Someone said, you'd be great at doing it because you speak to people every day, but rather than selling a product or a service, you would technically sell a human. And for me, I relate more to a human than a product and a service. I just felt like I would get something more out of it by helping people. That's always been in my nature. So I moved into that space and loved it. It was hard and challenging, and I learned a lot about humans because what people say and what people do are two completely different things. And I learned that the hard way. So evolved into cybersecurity recruitment, and I love this space because the people I've met are so interesting. They have the technical mindset and sometimes non-technical mindset, but they're all about protecting the human and protecting organizations. And I love that mindset. So yeah, here I am.
If you didn't do cybersecurity recruitment, what other industry do you think you would like to do recruitment in?
Oh, that's a good question. I've always seen product design, like a design element. I love playing around with Canva and doing my own marketing and creating content. So I feel like I would really enjoy talking to those people and learning off them. Yeah, off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think, and also because I see you on LinkedIn a lot, and I think that's probably why I thought of you to talk about this topic. And we'll probably get into, personal branding and stuff later. But I think being front of mind for people is really important. From a recruitment perspective, what are you seeing in the cybersecurity job market? Because I guess we want to talk about people who are trying to get into the industry, but also people who might be trying to transition from other career paths too.
Yeah, perfect. And for those who don't know who Decipher Bureau is, we are a specialist boutique cybersecurity recruitment organization. And we're not there to fill the easy roles or the entry level. We're there to help organizations, and we're engaged to fill the hard to fill niche, senior, hard to find talent cyber roles. And we understand the intricacies within cyber and how broad they can be and how niche they can be. We get that question all the time. How is the cybersecurity job market? And it's such a loaded question because it can be so different depending on which vertical we're speaking about. Like we see so many upwards and down trends in different pockets of cyber, whether it's blue team, red team, purple team, GRC, which we'll dive into a little bit more. But I was just having a look at our database. There's 12 of us here across Australia that just recruit in cybersecurity. And over the last 12...
So you guys have a great name, because I feel like a lot of cyber companies, I know you're a recruitment company, but specifically in cyber, but a lot of cyber companies, no offense, but the names aren't that great, but you guys actually have a really cool company name.
Thank you. I'll let Matt, the director, know that, because he started the business about 12 years ago when cyber was, I guess, becoming more sexy. And I think they sat down, his wife is in the sort of graphic design, marketing space. And so they really sat down and thought about the name really hard and long and wanted to make it unique and stand out. And so I'm glad it's appreciated.
12 years ago, like that's the time that all the good names were taken. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
They want it to be different. Bureau, though, it can be a hard word to spell for some people, I find.
You said the owner's wife is in graphic design.
Mm.
Yeah, because I think, when you see your posts on LinkedIn, it's easy to know straight away it's your company, which I think is what you want, right? You want people to know it's your brand even before they see the name.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because when I first came into the company about 2 years ago, I saw how much Decipher Bureau was doing behind the scenes and how much we're not sharing it online to really showcase our capability and some of the really interesting, cool work that we're doing. So I think since we've been here, there's been an evolution of what we're posting just to show a bit more awareness around some of the roles that we're placing, the types of people we get to work with. And we brought in a marketing manager late last year who's been doing awesome stuff behind the scenes and really working on branding, because I got feedback at some point last year that, Decipher Bureau just does government contracts. I was like, no, we do so much more than that. We work with startups, we work with large enterprises, we help recruit technical cyber roles and sometimes non-technical cyber roles. Like we're a boutique. Anything that has cyber attached to it and you need to hire that person, we are there and we know what good looks like and we can help find it. You asked about the market in general. So I was having a look at the database, and in the last 12 months alone, I think we've placed over 300 professionals into new cybersecurity roles, which is great. And as a recruiter, we have access to the LinkedIn backend, and there's a tab that we can access called Talent Insights, which gives you a full view of the industry of what you can see on LinkedIn. So this is just LinkedIn. And I was looking at this last night when I typed in professionals on LinkedIn with cybersecurity skills. It says that there are over 61,000 cyber professionals on LinkedIn. And in the last year, that's a 23% increase of who's been online. And looking at it a little bit deeper, I can actually see most of those numbers are open to work, which is very interesting. Doesn't necessarily mean people are looking to leave. I think people are open to exploring roles. Maybe they've reached a ceiling where they are, or they're looking for something else and they want to know what's out there. And in the last 12 months on LinkedIn, there has been over 11,000 people changing jobs in Australia, which is quite interesting to see. And I guess if we dig a little bit deeper, the median tenure is around 1.5 years in a role in cybersecurity. And I think what most hiring managers look for is people that have been in roles for around 2 years plus, because sometimes 1 year isn't enough time to make an impact. So people want to see what you've done in your roles and what changes you've made to see whether you could come in and make a difference to a gap that they have in their team.
Yeah, interesting. I'm interested to know from a recruiter's perspective, does the open to job badge that people can put on their profile, does that really increase the chances of a recruiter contacting them or not?
That's a really good question, because personally, do not put your open to work banner on the front page. I will still engage with those people, especially if I see that they're the right person for the job. However, if I'm going to be completely honest, sometimes it can look a little bit desperate. I think it's really important to be looking for a job for the right reason. Unless you have been made redundant and you are really looking for work, do what you need to do to find those jobs. But you actually have access to the back end of LinkedIn to switch on and open to work so that hiring managers and recruiters can see in the back end that you're looking for jobs, rather than having it on the front profile saying, I need a job, help me. People want to find the right person for the job, not based on circumstances. I think there's people out there that want to help people land a job, especially when they're in those circumstances. But I guess when a role comes to us, it's usually they're looking for someone to come in and hit the ground running. They're looking for a unicorn. So yeah, just trying to position yourself as that.
It's kind of like dating, right? When you are taken, everyone wants you, and then when you are single and desperately single, then you can't find anyone. Yeah. You're going on all dating apps, you're putting yourself out there, you're not getting any matches. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah, you have to play hard to get.
Well, that's a great insight. I didn't know you could do it on the back end. So there you go.
Yeah. I have a list of people that I think are fantastic in the industry, and I have alerts. So when people switch their open to work, I will call them straight away.
That's so good.
Secrets out.
Yes. I have a new goal in life. It's to get on your list, Jasmine.
Yeah.
Well, I find when a candidate makes an impact with me, I will remember that and I will make note.
Be nice to your recruiters.
Well, here I am.
Yeah.
I also wanted to touch on location as well, because obviously Annika and I both live in Canberra, so we have a very skewed view of the industry, because here it seems like there's just hundreds of jobs available all the time. So I'm interested to know, you're based in Sydney, but you must have team members that are based in other cities as well. What are you seeing in terms of that? And I guess obviously you mentioned that you deal mostly with people who are already established in the industry for roles. So yeah, what does it look like in the rest of the country, I guess?
Yeah, great question. And to give you context about our team, so we've got an office based in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. So we've got 3 in Brisbane, 5 or 6 in Sydney, and 3 in Melbourne. And so each of us that have feet on the ground speak to a lot of these people in person, face to face all the time. So I've got a very strong Sydney network, whereas the Melbourne team has a stronger Melbourne network. However, each one of us recruit all across Australia. Like, I just made a head of cyber placement in Perth a few weeks ago, and I also placed a security engineer in New Zealand. So just because we're based in one location doesn't mean that we can't partner and work with people outside. But when I jump onto the back end of LinkedIn on Talent Insights, it pulled up some interesting stats around each main city and where the top locations are for cyber talent. So Sydney comes in at the top with 17,786 cyber professionals on LinkedIn. Second place is Melbourne area, which is close, 17,275 LinkedIn professionals with cybersecurity skills. And then we've got Brisbane coming in at 5,800, Perth 4,900, and then Adelaide 3,100. Now, I know what you're thinking, where's Canberra in that mix? And from my view, as someone who also recruits a lot in the Canberra market, a lot of those cyber professionals are security cleared. And I find a lot of those people prefer not to be online and to not have a social online presence on LinkedIn for obvious reasons. And that's absolutely fine. But I do find maybe that's why the number doesn't look as high on LinkedIn. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm interested from the Adelaide numbers is interesting because of AUKUS. How are they going to be able to do all that work with such a low talent pool, I guess? Because like that's the total number, right? Let's assume that half of those are not, they might be studying cybersecurity or they might not have worked in the industry yet. So that's a very small number to draw upon. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to need people who are security cleared as well. So how are they going to get those people to Adelaide?
Good question. And I help a lot of people transition to new cities because sometimes to get good talent to relocate, you may need to look at relocation packages and helping them with that. And sometimes if you're based in Sydney, moving to Adelaide isn't a bad idea. It's a better lifestyle sometimes, a bit cheaper, more affordable, more bang for your buck.
There's nice beaches in Adelaide too.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
am all for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're away from Sydney, anywhere, Melbourne, Canberra, Adelaide. Yeah.
Yeah, if someone
it's
offered me
nice.
a relocation package to Adelaide, I'd probably be up for it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too bad, does it?
Mm.
But yeah, I think some of these professionals, so for example, I had a contract role for a critical infrastructure organization in Adelaide last year. And finding the talent was a little bit trickier because, as you can see, it's a smaller market. And the client only wanted to speak to people who were already based in Adelaide. So I couldn't look outside that search. And we found someone who didn't have the extensive experience for the role. I believe it was more focused around data security and architecture. But this person had shown the right attitude and got along with the team in the interview and saw eye to eye on a lot of things. So they actually recruited this person, even though they didn't have all the skill sets, they showed enough to have that curiosity, that learning mindset, that right attitude. And they haven't necessarily hit the ground running straight away, but they've absorbed everything and learned off the team. And they're doing really well.
Right place, right time, right attitude.
Exactly.
Very interested to know as well about what are the areas or the skills in cyber that you find that are needed the most? Specifically for me, I just finished my double degree, and one of them is cybersecurity. And I'm a mature age student, so, I have worked in my life. So, and I've been working in cyber for some time now, but a lot of them haven't, and a lot of them are young. I can't say kids, but they are kids. And a lot of them really want to be, pen testers. They want to be in the SOC. They want to do, all that red teaming stuff, or like the sexy defense stuff. Do you see a lot of demand in those roles?
So are you specifically talking about offensive security and SOC? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So is that true that there is more demand in there, or what would you say to those younger people that are looking to get in?
So as mentioned, we recruit more of the senior roles. So when we talk about the entry level roles, it does become a bit of a tougher conversation. I'm not going to sugarcoat that because it is challenging. It is hard. And you see a lot of people come out of university saying, I want to be a pen tester. And you can't sometimes just transition into that role unless there's some sort of internship opportunity. And I find a lot of these people that land their first roles in cyber, these roles aren't always advertised. So I always suggest really building out your networks and learning more about the industry and attending industry events to meet people and understand what's going on the ground. But I always suggest the best place to start transitioning, especially if you don't know which area of cyber you want to start in. A lot of people say, oh, I want a job in cyber. And I go, yeah, but doing what? And they go, I don't know, cyber. And I'm like, there is so many different areas. Yeah. So I always suggest to consider maybe looking at a consultancy or a big four where you get 3 years of experience in 1 year because you're working across so many different types of projects and you get exposure to all different areas, including security operations, offensive security, GRC, and then you can figure out which one you feel more connected to and that you enjoy doing and grow your career from there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because I transitioned, had a weird path into cybersecurity, but I did a grad role at Accenture and I didn't love the job, but it gave me that foot in the door to get some experience. I was actually doing software testing, so it wasn't cyber related, but even just that experience of being in a team and working with engineers, working with developers, working with project managers, understanding how the software development lifecycle works. That experience is really important because most roles you're going to go into, you're going to have to work in a team. So then you can show that you know how to work with other people, you understand how your role fits into the bigger picture. So yeah, I think that experience at a big company is definitely invaluable. But I want to shift now to talk about women in cybersecurity. And I know you're quite a big advocate. I know you do a lot of stuff. You go to a lot of events like AWSN. Australian Women in Security Network, just in case anyone doesn't know that acronym. And I know you also are on the ASA board for New South Wales. Is that correct? Yeah. Have you seen any change in the number of women even, say, applying for roles and things? And particularly, I think women who are in cybersecurity, just from my personal experience, do tend to be in GRC. They're not red teaming. Like occasionally you might see some women in the security operations center, but it's pretty rare. And especially as you get higher up, the fewer women you see. So yeah, interested to know what you're seeing in that area.
Absolutely. And this is one of my favorite topics because I'm super passionate about uplifting women in the cybersecurity industry. And what I always try to do with my shortlist when I work with a company is I try to have gender diversity in the shortlist, even if they don't necessarily have all the skills. Sometimes I speak to women that are up against other men in the shortlist and they just talk themselves down. And I'm like, girl, you have more experience than the person next to you and they're saying they're perfect for the job. But that's why I feel like I can do something about that, because I sort of sit at the forefront of the cyber recruitment industry and I can sort of guide people. And I've been able to help a lot of women land their dream jobs because of that, which is great and gives me fulfillment. But when we look at the stats, so I know there's been a floating around stat for a while saying that about 17% of the Australian workforce is made up of women. And personally, I feel like we have definitely made progress. Finding out what that exact stat is something I'm working on. But when I jump into the LinkedIn back end, as mentioned,
you don't spend a lot of time on LinkedIn.
Yes, I dream about it. It's so bad. But females make up 21% on the back end of LinkedIn, which I thought was really interesting, different to the 17% stat. And I guess for women entering the industry, have we seen a shift? I had a lady that I got a role for a few weeks ago. It was a cybersecurity consultant role, and she ended up turning it down because she was offered a fully paid scholarship for a cybersecurity master's. And I thought, if that's where you wanted to dedicate your full time, that's absolutely fine. You've got to decide what's right for you. But it's really good to see that there's been a lot of investment from universities and government to uplift women. I know CyberCX have like a female cadet program to really bring in more females into the industry. So I can see a shift in that space. And what's also really cool is, as you mentioned, you tend to see women more in GRC or security awareness roles. But just looking back at the placements that we've made here at Decipher Bureau over the past year, as mentioned, some women have outperformed male candidates for super highly technical roles. Like there's a senior DFIR investigator role, and we also had like a senior security engineering role, which took us quite a few months because they had such a high standard for the best in the industry. And this lady absolutely killed it in the interview, which was great. We also helped a lady land a head of cybersecurity role recently, which was fantastic. Again, it's not always about just choosing a female for the role. It's about choosing the right person for the role. And what we've seen is this sort of change in the way people see females in these highly technical senior roles, which is awesome. I know so many fantastic female leaders in this industry, and I think we need more of them, especially as role models for other women coming into the industry. So yeah, that's something I'm sort of working on behind the scenes.
That's so important. It's very hard, even if you are highly technical and you come into cybersecurity or you switch into cybersecurity. I find in my experience and seeing experience of other women as well, is that they try to box you in outside of your area of expertise and outside of what you want to do as well. I don't know if you've seen The Office, but I always remember this scene where Pam leaves with Michael to start their own paper company, and she's been asked to make copies, and she's like, if I make one copy, then I'm the receptionist again and I'm not a salesperson anymore. And every time then I hear about somebody being like, well, they put me into this role and this is not where I want to go. I want to do cyber engineering, and they're making me do, for example, a GRC role or business analysis role. Not that I think that there is a better one or not. It's just about what you want to do and what you're more passionate about. Yeah, so it's very important, the work that you are doing.
Thank you.
But I guess my leading question is for somebody that is trying to switch to a job, what mistakes have you seen in the way that they are applying for jobs or in their CVs or their resumes that don't get them that dream job, as you mentioned before?
How much time do you have? It's, again, such a big question, and I can give advice different to a junior to a head of, and I see hundreds, if not thousands, of CVs in my role. So I definitely have looked at all the CVs that have won the interview and won the job, and there is quite a clear difference between them. So I guess the first few things that come to mind as red flags when it comes to mistakes on CVs is too many pages. I don't necessarily need to see what you did in like the 1980s. I want to see what is relevant to the role. I think a lot of people say keep the CV 2 pages is ideal. Sure, that's great, but I'm happy if you have 5 pages. Just don't give me 30 pages.
Some people submit 30-page resumes.
30?
Are you kidding me?
No.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Because I know in the US, their CVs are 1 page. Like, it doesn't matter how much experience you have, it is max 1 page. Like, wow, that is insane. I mean, I understand if you were, say, an academic and you had to provide, say, excerpts from your thesis or whatever. Like, you know, I get certain roles like academia, you would have a long CV, but for like a regular job, what are you putting in there?
Exactly. I one time accidentally printed out 3 CVs and I took it straight to my coffee meeting that day, and I didn't realize how many pages were attached, and I put it in front of him and he said, "What is this?" I was like, I should have just taken the last few pages out, but I didn't want to miss anything. And straight away he's like, "I don't want to meet with them," which I'm like, wow, okay, you might be missing out on someone good, but that's just a perspective of what we see. I think over the past year to 2 years, there's an overuse of AI. It is so obvious to hiring managers and us as recruiters who's using AI copy and paste and who's using it as a tool and enhancing it and personalizing it. That's what I would always suggest. We live in a world of AI now, so use it to your advantage, but don't use it entirely without making it your own. And it's so obvious to spot it. You see the American spelling with the Z, or you see the long dashes, or the overly polished, bold phrases. Hiring managers see this straight away.
It's that phrasing of like, it's not just that I did this, I also went and did this. And it's like, sorry, it's a topic that I am very angrily passionate about, because I see it just everywhere. You see it on Instagram captions, you see it on LinkedIn posts, and I can't stand this way of writing anymore. It's like everything the same. So I can't imagine what it's like for you to be in this role of a recruiter and reading like a kind of like a cookie cutter format. Not that the content is different, but it's the format that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, because I heard a recruiter talk about this on a podcast or somewhere, maybe it was YouTube, and he said that, well, one, that recruiters on average spend about 6 seconds looking at a CV, and the second thing was that they look at a CV in an F formation. So I guess like the first horizontal line of the F is, you know, they're looking at your
professional summary.
You're looking at that, and that's like the first F and first line of the top F, and then the second horizontal, the shorter line of the F is your first work, like your last job or whatever. And then they just go down from there. So I'm interested to know, is that true?
I haven't heard it like that, but it does make sense, right? The first page should really highlight everything the hiring manager needs to know. I've seen people that have first pages that just list hundreds and thousands of certs. I know that's over the top, but they just sort of focus on completely irrelevant requirements for the role and then sort of list their experience on the third page. And it's like, at least give us an understanding of who you are now and what you're doing now and everything we need to know in 7 seconds, as you mentioned. I think you said 6. I'm pretty sure it's 7 seconds. And it's true. Like right now, for example, I'm working on 8 different roles that have hundreds of CVs come through. So am I going to be able to read every single one in detail? Not necessarily. I'm going to look for all the people that have all the right certifications, all the right experience, the right tools I'm looking for, the right titles from their experience and location and other things like that. So yeah, I can see why the F formation would work.
If you don't like it, you just go F this. I'm not going. It works in so many ways. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's early in the morning. But with the tools, it's interesting to me because I have seen more as a hiring manager. I think I've seen people list every single tool they have ever used in their life, I think. So I wonder from your perspective, obviously, like an organization is not going to have all of these tools. So is it worth it listing everything you do? Like everything you know, sorry, which tools to use?
Keep it relevant and specific to the role you're hiring for. I can see, so just to give you a perspective of the hiring manager and the recruiter. So just like I said, I'm working 8 roles, but I've got a team of 10 plus, and they're all working different roles. We all have access to a database where we see all these roles, and we can see each and every candidate going through. And each candidate has a number of times they've applied for a role with us. And sometimes there's a candidate using the exact same CV for a GRC manager role, for a pen testing role, for a security operations role, and they're not tailoring their experience to the role. And for us, it makes us think, what are you actually looking for? You don't even actually know what role you want. And that doesn't help us position your skills and experience best to the hiring manager. So
spray and pray approach.
yes, the spraying, it's not great, and we can see it. And I hear hiring managers hear it all the time. They almost blacklist you if you do that. So yeah, you don't need to necessarily list all the tools. I have hiring managers that don't care about what tools you've used, don't care about what programming language you know. All they care about is the impact you've made in the last role and the achievements you've made and what you've done. Some people refer it as tool laundry lists, and they don't want to see that.
No, I definitely seen that. And you've seen people, maybe not in cyber so much, but I've seen people in my previous life when I worked in hotels where I was hiring quite a lot of people. Yeah. And I've seen people apply for every single role that we were doing. And the survey we were putting out there. And I'm like, you want to be a concierge and you want to be a front office attendant and you're applying for a food and beverage attendant job. And I was like, so what is your skill set? Are you that good at everything? Or you're just like statistically hoping that one thing will click? Yes. Yeah, I don't know if people realize that hiring managers can see that recruiters can see that. Because if they did, maybe they wouldn't do that. So maybe if they listen to our podcast with you, they will know now. So that's really good.
I hope so. That's the aim.
I'm interested to know from a personal branding perspective, and we touched on this a bit earlier, because you mentioned that you have a list of people that if they ever were open to work, that you would immediately contact them. I'm interested to know how much of that is because of their personal brand. Is that because they're very visible online? Is it a combination of factors? And even, I think, especially from my perspective, and Annika can probably talk a bit more about this, but especially I'm seeing a lot of university students who are using LinkedIn to their advantage, and even if they've never had a cybersecurity job, they're showcasing cool stuff that they're doing. And I think that, like, if I was looking for somewhere I was working was looking for a junior staff member, like, they'd be the first people I think of, you know, because they might not be the perfect person for the role and they might not have the experience, but they've got the curiosity and the interest in this field to probably do very well.
Absolutely. No, I think personal brand is something I hold near and dear to my heart. It's helped me grow in my career professionally and personally. But I guess when we throw it back to the candidate, hiring managers do care about this. And I think it adds a lot more personality to the candidate and makes you stand out amongst a large sea of other candidates that say they're also good for the job. For example, there was a CISO role I was recruiting for, and I had a really strong candidate for the role, but the hiring manager didn't want to interview them because they didn't have a LinkedIn presence. And I thought that was crazy, because in an industry where security is so important and you shouldn't be sharing information online, it actually was a requirement that the hiring manager needed. They needed to see this person's credibility in the industry, that they were connected to the right people, that they knew their staff, that they were attending events, maybe speaking on panels. Like, this all adds to, it's almost like a second CV. It adds to who they are and whether they're the right person for the role. I've even had other organizations I've worked with that have seen that their LinkedIn profile's only been active for a few months. And they said, no, I need to see that this person has their certs listed and that they have been within the industry and they're active in the community. Like, that's really important to our culture and who we are. So definitely something to think about.
And especially for a role of a size, so you're talking about C-suite person, you want to know that, I mean, when you go to that level, you are not necessarily like on the tools all day, you know, solving problems and so on. You're solving problems in a very different way. You're doing it through communication, through industry engagement, finding the right people, even knowing the right vendors, knowing the right products and so on and so on. I can see why they wanted that. That makes perfect sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a very different type of role. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes some roles are advertised on LinkedIn that you won't see on Seek or on other channels. So it is another way for you to explore career paths for yourself. So whilst you're at it, highlight who you are, what makes you different to the other person that's going for the same job, and design it so that it attracts the role that you're looking for.
Yeah, because I think, like you were saying, LinkedIn is your second CV, right? And it's funny, when I do update my CV, I use my LinkedIn to remember what I've done, because like, sometimes I forget. Yeah. And so I list all the talks that I've done on my CV. I list all awards that I've won. I list, like, now I'm on the Osaka board. So anything that, and then also the fact that I do this podcast.
Volunteering
we do.
well.
Yeah, volunteer. Like there's actually so many things you can list on your CV that I think are outside of the role that you're applying for, but it adds, like you said, it adds personality. It shows that you're passionate. It shows that it just shows that you have people skills, right? Because being on a board or being able to talk to people, that involves a lot of really useful skills. I think public speaking is such a incredibly useful tool and skill to have that a lot of people don't. So even just showing that you've been able to speak at a conference shows that someone chose you to speak because you had an interesting topic to talk about.
At the end of the day, you can teach people the technical, you can teach people how to do certain aspects of the role, but there are things, like you said, in the soft skills, in the public speaking, in the way you communicate and solve problems, that's a harder to find skill set. So if you can promote that online on your profile, it will really help.
This is my sign to update both. That's a job for me. But I did want to mention anime with the university students and so on, how they are using LinkedIn as their personal brand. We actually created a cybersecurity club in our university. It wasn't me who's done it, but the person who's done it, we've seen him in CyberCon last year in Melbourne. He was actually
Ryan?
Yes, it's Ryan. Yes, he was actually presenting our talk. It was hilarious. I was like, what are you doing with our microphone? Anyway, he's like, I'm going to present your talk. Oh my God. What he's done is really good because he's been pushing people to post about all of their experiences on LinkedIn. And it created a culture of everyone kind of trying to follow him and following me and then other students that have been doing that as well. And you can see that they got quite prestigious internships. And from those, they got really good roles while they are working. While they're still studying or just finished studying. So they're already hitting the ground running. And then I told Ryan as well that it's important to get some other certifications in GRC as well, maybe learn a few frameworks here and there, diversify your skill set. Yeah, so I think it's a very good example of somebody who is trying to get into the industry, whether you are brand new or if you are switching, absolutely use every tool you have. And
I even saw he posted when he graduated, he posted his CV on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was like, not sure if I recommend everyone doing that, but you're putting
Yeah.
out a lot of personal
Yeah.
info there, but also at the end of the day, I was thinking, well, I guess LinkedIn's already your CV anyway, it's listing all your jobs
Yeah.
and all your previous experience anyway. But I was like, damn, good on him for putting himself out there. Like he's just like,
Yeah.
bam, here's my CV.
I admire his openness. Like I
Mm.
wouldn't do this specifically because, the industry that I work in, where I work in Canberra and so on, but and also like what sticks, because industry changes and the social media trends change and you never know what's going to click, right? So sometimes you post about, B2B sales and you go viral for the wrong reasons. So I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes it works. But also like with interviews as well, I've seen it as a very useful topic to sometimes bring up things that are adjacent to cyber experience. Back to your point, Anime, for example, public speaking. When I wasn't doing public speaking, I used to bring up that I used to do Toastmasters, which is a very good tool to get yourself ready to do public speaking. And that really helped me a lot. What did you see people, like maybe feedback that you got from hiring managers about people who like really did well in interviews? I guess like blue flags and red flags as well, like what not to do.
Yeah, great stuff. So I guess I see the common mistakes people make in the interview. And then I also see how people do really well and win the interview and land the role. So I guess the biggest one for me is the mistake they've made is lack of depth and clarity in their responses. I've seen people go off in tangents. And if you can't land your point in around about 2 minutes, you lose impact. You need to know how to say the right thing to the right person in the right way. And people that utilize the STAR method, have you guys heard of that method before? That framework? Yeah.
In my unit, they really put it down in me. They're like star.
Yeah. I've found people that use STAR, which is situation, task, action, result. It keeps the responses sharp. It takes the interviewer on the journey, and it just makes sense to what you're trying to explain. And then I guess the next one I see, the mistake I see make is when they talk about we instead of I. So hiding behind a team, saying we built this, we implemented that. They're not hiring your team, they're hiring you. So people that really own their contributions and own their outcomes are the ones that do really well. Because as mentioned before, they're usually hiring you because there's a gap or there's a challenge that need to be solved, and they need to see that you've done it before and you can come in and hit the ground running. One thing I see people do really well is researching the company. Think of it as like an open source intelligent mindset. So really understanding the full organization, reading the news, maybe what is in the press, their strategy, tailor your responses to show that you understand their challenges and their environment. It will set you apart from the others. Put yourself in the shoes of the interviewer. Imagine if it was your business and you interviewed someone and they didn't know anything about your products or services. It would just make you feel like they're walking in not knowing who they're interviewing with. So that's a really good way to position yourself in an interview. Also, asking questions. Prepare insightful questions. If they ask you at the end, do you have any questions? Never say no, always say yes. Think about what could shape your understanding and knowledge of the role even further. Understand success measures. What are you looking for in a successful candidate? What does success look like to you? And then once they share that, tell them how you can help them do that. And last one, I would say, where I've seen people not hit the mark is letting ego get in the way, coming across arrogant, maybe not showing enough enthusiasm for the opportunity. I think striking that balance between confidence, curiosity, and collaboration is what will make you look better, rather than coming in saying, I've done this before, I can help solve it, it's about me. Show interest in them, show curiosity, and be confident, but not arrogant, if that makes sense.
Those are great tips. Yeah. And I think especially what you mentioned about doing research on the company, that's really important, because I've been involved in interviewing other people as well. And and they just don't even know what you do. It immediately is a massive red flag. But I think also, especially for women too, I think I always like to do a lot of research on the company, because I want to know, do they have, what's the culture like? And I'm not saying having women makes good culture, but I had an interview with a company that was a startup, and I went to their website and looked at their page with all the exec staff, and there was one woman on the whole page. I think there was about 40 people listed. And my first question when it came around to time to ask question was, so I've noticed that you don't have many women in the exec role. So just wondering, like, you know, what do you actually do to bring more women in, and asking questions around the company culture? Because I think that's really important for me, particularly when I'm looking for a new job. So yeah, if you're not doing research into the company you're looking to work at, don't even bother applying, you know?
Yeah.
I had somebody that I was interviewing, and then we asked them about how they stay in touch with the changes in the industry. What podcasts do they listen to? He's like, well, I haven't had a chance to listen to your podcast yet, Annika. And I was like, oh my God, you're my favorite person. What is it? But I was like, oh, wow. Oh my God. Two words colliding. Yeah, definitely was a big green flag for me. Absolutely. And I was also thinking about your example about we versus I. Again, it's like a dating website, and people put like a group photo on their profile picture.
Yeah.
Like, who am I actually talking to?
Yeah, which one are you?
Like, yeah, don't do that. Yeah, of course. Like, it does show team spirit, but if you're always using it, then what exactly is your contribution to this? But maybe it's also a good time to ask about some of the examples from the CVs that you have seen from both the entry level and the transition roles for the winners of the little competition we threw together.
Yeah, thank you for reviewing those, by the way.
Oh, happy to. As mentioned, most of the roles we recruit for are quite senior and have extensive experience, whereas these two are quite green and junior. So I was just trying to think of maybe what I would suggest. And to be honest, I thought mostly they were great. So I guess I'll point out what I liked about them. This person, Adam Awan, said that we could share his name. And if anyone's looking for a junior, I highly recommend. What I liked about his CV was that it was easy to read, 2 pages, easy font. There's nothing worse than when all the font is different size, different colors, and it just turns you off. Yes, unfortunately. The amount of times I've had to just edit resumes before I send it to the hiring manager.
Oh, wow.
So yes, clear and concise professional summary. I like that. It was straight to the point. You listed your certifications on the first page, and I could see all the different technical skills. You had highlighted your programming skills, the tech stack, your knowledge across different technology. I thought that was great. So if you're looking for SOC analyst or a junior security analyst or even an IT help desk, Adam looks great. So I guess my constructive feedback, and just to start off, like I said, it's hard to break into an entry-level role in cyber. It's quite competitive. And I think what will help you land the job sometimes sits outside of the resume, because what I can see here is good, but it's about what you proactively do with the CV and how you open up opportunities. But it's great to see the university projects and the capstone work you've done. It's well presented. It shows your knowledge. I can't fault the CV, but maybe depending on what role you're applying for, like I said, an IT help desk role where you can get exposure to cybersecurity, maybe highlight those transferable skills from your customer service technical role at Big W. Maybe talk about the different customer challenges you had and how you resolved them and how you worked on tickets and troubleshooted. Really highlight those keywords that would land best with the hiring manager that's looking for those skill sets. I've noticed there's a lot of certs and different things you're doing to uplift your CV, but maybe start looking at attending industry communities and events. So ASA, I'm the deputy chair of the New South Wales branch, and we run monthly meetings here in Sydney, but each main city has their own different chapters and events, and getting involved, attending, meeting people there, list that you're a member there or that you're involved in these really important conversations. Maybe find out who to speak to do some volunteer work and show your regular attendance on your CV. So I guess that's the first thing that comes to mind when I looked at that one.
Yeah, no, it sounds like overall pretty good CV.
And I've seen some shockers, so I will hand on heart say this is great. You've done well, Adam.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. So let's have a look at the career pivot now. What did you think about this one?
Yeah, I love a good career pivot. I've seen so many interesting people in cyber, whether they've moved from like being a chef to a SOC analyst, or whether they've worked in the police force as an investigator and moved into DFIR. Like, I love this stuff. This one was a lady called Katerina. She had what I liked, she had a very well formatted, easy to read CV, so that was great. She had a strong professional summary and experience on the one page. I could see everything I needed to on the first page. Certifications listed early. She had listed that she's an AWSN member, shows her community involvement. She also sent me a cover letter, which was great. I guess for me, as someone who looks at hundreds of CVs every day, it's not always important for me as an external recruiter, but some hiring managers like to see why you're applying for the role and sort of tailoring a very specific one-pager on why you should be considered, because that's coming straight from the heart rather than just spraying your CV as mentioned. So that's good. Constructive feedback. I actually potentially had a role for this lady, and I ended up asking a few more questions. There's a security awareness role that may be opening up with a CISO. She needed someone to help in that space. But when I first looked at her CV, I couldn't tell whether she had done much cybersecurity awareness, even though I know that's the pivot she's made and what she's looking to do. It spoke more about learning and working with legal and governance, and GRC, as we know, is a critical important area in cybersecurity. So maybe spinning that governance angle to reflect more of that GRC capability. In the cover letter, there was a lot around collaboration with cyber teams and phishing programs and security knowledge hubs. I think there was one line in her current experience that referenced cyber. I would, like I said, tailor the CV to attract the role you're looking for. I know you're trying to be true to what you've done in the role and what's in the contract that you signed for that role, but really highlight the key strengths and experience for the role that you are looking for. They don't necessarily care too much about all the irrelevant stuff. The role said brand manager. I personally don't really know what a brand manager is. I think there was in brackets a reference to learning and capability and governance, but I would change that and say security awareness and governance focus. Like, keep it really short and sharp and to the role that you're looking for. I also noticed that there was an employment gap. So the last role she had finished up
you mentioned this,
November 2025. Now, as a recruiter and as someone who speaks to hiring managers, they want to know what they've done since then, because worst case scenario, you could have been in jail. And
I remember you said that. I was like, wow, I've never thought having a gap on your CV, someone would assume you've been in jail.
I know it seems a bit extreme, but do you see what I'm trying to get at? Like, where they want to know what you've done in that space of time. So whether you list been studying or took a career break to focus on mental health, I'm not sure. But be honest to what you've been doing in that, rather than just sitting at home watching Netflix. So sort of talk about what you've been doing in the meantime to prepare yourself for that next role.
Yeah, no, I literally have that joke about the person mispronouncing jail and saying, yes, I've been to Yale. And they're like, yeah.
How good's that?
Yeah. I think those are really good tips. And especially, I think what you mentioned about, tailoring your CV to the role, because I think that's something that we can all probably could do better, right? Like, because I think also that, and also sometimes it just comes down to, I'm not saying in this case, but sometimes it can come down to laziness. Like, if you're just like, oh, I've applied for 10 jobs already, I can't be asked, trying to fit my CV into this specific role. But if you do, you're more likely to get an interview. So
absolutely. Quality over quantity.
Yeah, for
100%.
sure.
Yeah.
But thank you. I feel like I've learned so much this morning.
Thank you.
No, I'm definitely going to take away some of these tips for any future job hunts that I have in the future.
Great. That's what I love to hear.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for coming on the podcast today. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, I guess, about a potential role, where can they find you?
I live on LinkedIn. You can find me there. But if you want to see me in person, I'm at every ASA branch event in Sydney. But you'll most likely find me at different industry events. So get yourself involved. And if you see a crazy redhead running around with the loudest voice in the room, come and say hi. Don't be shy.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, Annie Mae and Annika. This has been so much fun.
Well, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Lost in Siberia.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Awesome. That was really good. I feel like we covered a lot of ground.